What's up? Hey, Wynn.
Hi, everybody. I'm Wynn.E, and this is Anne.
Anj.
Yes, I am not good at introduction. I'm used to introducing other people. Oops.
No, you're all good. I'm so used to being the interviewee, so I feel like this mutual interview thing is new for both of us.
No, I also stream, so I'm used to constantly introducing other people, or like we have a way, like a system set up to introduce people.
Yeah, we're just winging it.
Yeah, totally winging it. Anyway, welcome to a mutual interview talking about Selfish, including some of the behind the scenes choices and just the overall product that happened on August 9th of 2024.
Yeah. All right. I feel like I
Yeah.
want to start with asking you,
Okay, go for it.
because I feel like questions I have too are more about the writing process, which did take place right before the production. So, what inspired you to write the song "Selfish"?
Um, to be honest, it was kind of like coming to terms with a really rough environment. I felt I had no control over my life. I felt that I was constantly changing myself to make other people happy instead of trying to focus on how to bring out my inner peace and make my inner peace tangible. The fun fact, it actually reminds me of this one character from a one act play that I used to be part of as the stage manager, and it's called On the Edge. And the oldest female character literally has like a breakdown on stage talking about how she was editing what she said, what she thought, how she acted around everybody at their family reunion because of an image that was put on her and that she wanted to break that image. And I felt like that was such a powerful message. And so that kind of leaked in as I was writing.
That's awesome. I love that you kind of took inspiration from not only an experience, but also like another piece of art. Quick fun fact, I was also a stage manager in high school. So funny that you're also aware. That makes a lot of sense though. Um,
I've been on both sides of the stage. I've been on and off. So
yeah.
I know both sides of that process, and it can be weird.
For sure. So, I mean, I love that you kind of tapped into like the universal emotion. Like, I feel like a lot of people, I think everybody can relate to the song Selfish because you really like, although it came from your experience, you didn't write it in a way that was so stuck in your experience that nobody else could, relate to it because it's so specific. Do you know what I mean?
Right. I did that on purpose. Even though everything is a personal experience for me, I know I'm not the only person who goes through these things. So I don't want it to be targeted at one particular person when I'm speaking. And even if I am, I don't want that person to be that person or that target to be explicit. Because if it's explicit, it's harder to kind of get sucked into the story.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
also, I wanted to turn the word selfish on its head. A lot of people say, "Oh, you're so selfish," and I'm like, "Well, I'm not the one who started the me first movement, so
Mm.
I'm just run with it."
Yeah. It's like, what's the negative connotation around being selfish, right? Like, why is
Right.
being selfish a bad thing? I'm reading Will Smith's book Will, and he's talking about this time in therapy when him and his wife Jada are both had to write down their priorities, and he put himself first, she put the kids first,
Mhm.
and that really hurt her, and he didn't understand why because the way that Will sees it is in the way that you write the song is like if you don't take care of yourself, how can you be there for other people? Versus, the way that his wife saw it was like, how could you be so selfish?
Yeah, it's like
Um,
it goes back to that idea of you can't pour from an empty cup. So if you don't take care of yourself,
yeah,
then you can't take care of other people.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, cool. So, I mean, we kind of touched upon this idea of you writing the song first, but I really want to kind of emphasize the time difference in between when you wrote the song and when we actually produced
Oh,
this.
yes.
So, yeah, when did you write Selfish?
Selfish in the timeline is actually the last song I wrote lyrically. Other than yeah, the last song I wrote lyrically for the album. And I
Mhm.
find it funny how it's literally last written, first release.
Yeah.
Um, it was written about 2022. It's also the youngest song on the album, lyrically speaking. And since I had lost my job, I was like, well, shit. I hate this. And so I had written it about a year before you and I started working together.
Wow, okay. And so for context, we started working together in December, like mid
Right.
end of December 2023. Um,
Yeah, so, like,
yeah.
about 6 to 12 months before you and I started working together, I had a whole demo put
Hmm.
out.
Yeah, yeah, on your YouTube. Yeah, yeah. This was one of the only songs, if I remember correctly, other than Cast a Spell, that
Correct.
was like already out on YouTube or like in the public eye.
Yes, Cast a Spell is the only other song that's in the public eye, and I was actually, like, making money off of it. This one, I was not making money off of it. It was just a YouTube demo with a pre-written beat, and the beat kinda solidified how the lyrics came out as, like, what structure I took with them.
Okay, I'm curious that you mentioned that. Was this a song that you wrote to the beat?
Yes, actually, it's interesting.
Oh,
I had the lyrics, but I didn't know how I wanted to put them, and then I came across the pre-made beat, and I was like, "This works really well with what I've already written," and so I was like, "Let me see what I can make up with this."
wow. Because you never do that. You always write
No,
your
I
lyrics
don't.
first.
Literally, it is one of the few songs where it was almost backwards for me.
Yeah. That's interesting how all of this came about, in terms of it being backwards, it being the youngest song, and then it also being first to release. And also the process for us was so smooth for this song. Um, there were a
I
couple
remember you were so
songs.
nervous to deal me this instrumental change up because you were like, it doesn't sound a lot like it, but I was like, no, I love the Sunrise Riser. I loved the guitar and like I when I showed it to when Flameus got our buddy Flameus got to listen to it, he was like, I love that guitar.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes me happy because you're right. Like this was one of the songs there was a couple, but I think this one in particular, this one in Regret, I was so terrified to show you. So I was like,
Yeah.
it was just different than what I normally make. Um,
Yeah. I mean, there was, like, a couple flubs with Anger where you were, like, worried about how it would sound,
yes.
but you weren't scared to show me it. You were like, "Hey, it's a
No.
little I'm not quite sure about it, but let's see what happens with it." Whereas with Selfish, you were like, "I don't know if you're gonna like this at all."
Yeah. Yeah. That's exactly how it was. Yeah. So also, this is the only song out of the project that you've performed. So I wanted to
Yes.
dive into that a little bit. Like, what was it like, and how did it feel for you to perform this live for the first time?
So, technically, this is the 2nd song I have performed live. The first one was on
Okay.
a Zoom call. So, it was
Okay.
a lot different performing on a Zoom call versus going back on stage and performing in front of a live audience that you could watch their facial expressions and you could see people sitting on the edge of their seat or clapping and snapping. And I didn't see a lot of movement and it terrified me because I thought either everybody was zoning out or they noticed that I had flubbed. Um
It was
my
so
manager is going to
slight.
scream at me for hearing me say this, but, like, I messed up that first chorus. But to quote my manager, it is a unique experience on that live stage, and so those people will only ever hear that version.
Exactly, yeah, and it was also before the song even came out, so they don't even know what it's supposed to sound like.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
the mentor knew because she heard the demo. Like, the
Okay.
showcase host knew, but she didn't know what the final product had sounded
Okay.
like before I performed it.
Mhm. Yeah.
And
So what
actually, the way Selfish was performed, like, recorded and then mixed was actually through her, criticisms when she first heard the demo.
okay. What were her criticisms?
Um, I actually wasn't using enough emotion. So, I'm a choir
Mm.
singer, which
Mhm.
means I have technical skills,
Yeah.
but choir in, like, high school and performing arts don't always teach you emotion unless you are going to act on stage while singing. So, I didn't have a lot of that, and so I would she said, "You definitely sound like you know how to sing, but I don't understand the story you're telling."
Mm. That's interesting because you definitely flipped that around in the final.
Yes.
I was listening to it just before this, and one of the biggest standouts for me in your delivery was like how your voice starts off so soft
Mhm.
and builds just tremendously from like especially in the bridge sorry going into the last chorus. Your voice sounds so strong in the end. It's like you found your you've kind of broken out of that shell. You've kind of made your peace with like I'm gonna be selfish. Um
Right, it's coming to that resolve and keeping it.
mhm.
It's you know, everybody already thinks I'm selfish, so I'm gonna double down and I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it for a positive reason and not for spite.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, so overall the live was I think it was a great experience for you.
Terrifying, but the more I do it, the less terrifying it will be. Because
Yes,
I haven't
exactly.
performed on a stage in, like, 7 or 8 years.
Damn. So that must have
Yeah,
been scary.
so that's why I say it was terrifying. I was in a yellow getup just like I am now, and nobody in the audience thought I was terrified, which is good. I masked it enough to do the song. I sat down and I was like, "Babe, I need my fidget now." I was like, "Give me my fidget. I need my fidget. I need water. I need to, like, stop."
Calm. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's awesome. It's like you said though, the more you do it, the more confident I guess you'll get, which is like and they're more natural to feel. But I think you'll always have those nerves. I think that's very like natural. If you didn't have the nerves, I think that would be scarier. Um so the last question that I really have for you is like, why did you decide for Selfish to be the lead single from this project?
I felt like it was the most relatable, and so therefore it would draw more people in because yes, it's like mass appeal, but also it has that really intimate feel to it.
Yeah.
And the people that I want to target crave that intimacy. So I wanted to start off the gun as hot as I could with the target audience that I had picked.
Right. Okay, nice. And then I was also thinking about kind of the time of year we're in, and like this song is something
Yes,
you
that
play.
too.
Um, for me, I as soon as we finished this song, finished the mix and master, I was like, I want to play this windows down in the car, like because it's that summer, like end of summer, especially that August type of feeling.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's a kind of the
And
perfect.
it was released like the month that schools start again. And it's a reminder that you should not sacrifice yourself to make friends, to keep
Mhm,
people happy. You should not sacrifice yourself for somebody that you're interested in.
mhm.
Like, you should always put your peace first.
Yeah. I need that reminder, so thank you.
Jeez, no, I have to tell myself. He tells me that all the time. My manager, aka my spouse, he tells me that all the time.
Yeah, it's a good reminder.
Somebody's gotta do it because I ain't gonna do it. It's like when people say, "You need a vacation," and I'm like, "If I knew how to take one, I would."
I love that. So, okay, well, those are my questions for you right now, but I'll hand it over to you.
So, one of the things that I think a lot of, especially people who are aspiring to be beat makers, would love to ask is, walk me through, and you can do this as fast or as slow as you want, but walk me through the process of how you layered the beat from hearing the demo beat.
Mm. Okay,
Like, which
so
instrument did you pick to
yeah.
recreate first? Like, do you start out with the hardest part, or do you start with the easiest part that you can pick out?
Okay, so for this song, I actually did it differently than I would normally do, in terms of recreating because we did that a couple times over this project,
Mhm.
and I think for anger and regret, I started with the chorus. The most complicated part, I guess.
Right.
Um, but then for selfish, I started like I went front to back. Um, and I started with the instruments, which
Mhm.
I I was just talking about this with another producer friend. Is like a lot of producers start with the drums. I'm unique in the way that I start with the instruments always. It's just what jumps out to me
Like the
first.
melody instrument?
I in this case I started with the guitar.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Um,
Which is our hook instrument in this case.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and then I started with the guitar and I was going this was I think the hardest part was finding a guitar that gave that same vibe. Like I wasn't gonna find one that was like the same um the same notes or the same kind of like rhythm or
Yeah, because
anything.
the demo had, like, a muted guitar.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. It actually had two. It had like a lead guitar and then it also had
Mhm.
like a muted guitar in the background that was like more rhythmic. And
Yes.
I ended up just using one. And I think it was through Arcade that I found a sample because I was going back and forth through it so much that I went through every kind of sample library that I had. I debated writing one. I was like, should I write it with MIDI? Should I pick up a guitar and just record it? I couldn't really decide how to go from there. And that's when I started going through some arcade samples. And arcade is like, um, it's like one long sample, but then each note on your keyboard is a different chopped up piece of it. So I kind of made my own out of this chopped up sample. Um, and that's how I got the main guitar, and that's where I started. After that, it was the vocal sample. Um, because I wanted to fill out the instruments before I dove into drums, FX, etc. Um, so yeah, that vocal sample super different also than what's in the demo. But again, I was matching more with the vibe than I was with the specific instruments. So that was again through Arcade in a different like pack. I think it's called Distant Vocals. Um, and I kind of made uh that I don't even know what to call it. It's kind of like a lead line, like a top line, but it's also like a bit of a background at the same time. Um
Maybe it's more of like a ceiling note,
okay, yeah, yeah. That's a good way to
because,
phrase
like,
it.
if you have your anchor note, which is usually where the bass
Mhm.
sits, that vocal synth that you created is, like, that really soaring one that helps to create that sunrise effect, what I've been calling the sunrise riser,
Oh
and
yeah.
it creates a really nice rounded out effect and helped me especially recreate harmonies that didn't stress my top register too much.
Mhm.
And so then I could take out the high harmonies during the chorus and just leave the lows to balance
Okay.
out.
Yeah, okay, I'm glad that helped. Um, because in general, like, the vocals are lower for you.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that I guess that kind of is the ceiling. Like, it's the highest part that ends up being there in the instruments. And then I think I went straight from there into some drums because the drum pattern was really simple, but the hardest part was the sounds, the individual sounds. So
Mhm.
finding kind of the right like pop snare that's like not too aggressive but also kind of acoustic. Probably went through hundreds of snares before I actually found that one. And
Yeah,
then
like the kind of bubbly, almost like a bubble pop in a
yeah.
way.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, because it's like the way that I talk about this song is like it's very much like the pop. It's like the most pop song on on the EP. Like
Yes.
because there's anger and regret and that are also kind of pop, but anger is like pop rock and
Mhm.
regret is like pop dance. So this one is like very like clean bubblegum kind of bedroom pop. Um
Yes, and that's actually what I classified it in the audio teaser when I made
Mhm.
the little clipboard kind of version, the little whiteboard version. It's indie bedroom pop,
Yes, that's
and
exactly
that's how
yeah.
I've been pitching it to people. It's an indie bedroom pop ballad.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And that's exactly what I was going for, was like trying to find indie is like the perfect word because I was looking for like an acoustic drums, but bedroom pop in the sense that there's still um it's still manipulated, it's still like MIDI. You can tell that
Mhm.
it's not natural drums. Um but yeah, that's what I was going for in the drums. I said the hardest part with the drums because the rhythm is so easy was the just the individual sounds.
Where it's, like, making it interesting to combat all of the kind of, like, easy listening sounds that were already there.
Yeah, and just again going back to that like overall vibe, right? Like I don't want the drum to be too aggressive. I also don't want it to be super soft. Then I have to think about, do I want to layer them? Then and there's just so many like open-ended possibilities, which is the
Yeah.
fun part about beat making, but also where it can get super challenging because it's very easy to overproduce. Like that's I think one of the biggest mistakes that like beginner beat makers make. Like I used to do this all the time. I was thinking the more layers I can put, the better, but that's not always the
Mhm.
case. Um, so yeah, that the kick as well was obviously simple, so I just needed to find the right one, which was again kind of acoustic, but still strong because that and the very simple bass was like the and all the low end. Um, so I had to be full enough that it rounded out the whole sound, all the frequencies.
Right.
Yeah. That's kind of the main points for the beat.
So, when you got the idea when I threw you the idea demo of Selfish with this, like, bought pre-made beat that I had purchased, what was your first thoughts about Selfish?
In terms of like an overall song.
Well, it could be the overall song or, like, how like, the whole recreation thing or, like, you know, I know that when we were talking with Owen, because I think so Forgotten was the first one he worked on, and then Selfish was the second one, and he said, "Oh, okay, so we're gonna be doing an R&B album because Forgotten has, like, an R&B feel to it." And then Selfish comes in and he's like, "What is this?"
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That we had that moment many times over this project where like it's interesting because each song is so different, but it all fits together very seamlessly. Um yeah, my first thoughts were I will pop ballad for sure. I was kind of like it was a bit of a challenge because it's not like again not what I normally gravitate towards in terms of making beats. So, um I also one thing I think I challenge I put on myself was like how do I make this interesting? Because it is very easy listening, it is very simple. It's like how can I make it interesting enough where there's like ear candy? And I think that's what the vocal what do you call it? The sunrise riser? Is that what you said?
Yes,
Yeah, this
because
that's
it reminds me of a sunrise and a sunset.
that's perfect because that's what selfish overall as a song reminds me of. Right? So um yeah, I think that was the main thing that ended up being that flavor that the song needed.
Is that would you say that that's also, like, your favorite part of the production is the little ear candy there?
Yeah.
And then last question, not fully related to the song, but related to the theme, which is what do you do to be selfish?
Mm.
In the term within the concept of what selfish stands for the song.
Yeah. Um, I actually have been very selfish for the past like 2 months because I had a really low period in like April, May, more like May, June. So like July and August, I've been very much like just be taking care of myself.
Mhm.
So a lot of things like my coffee at first thing in the morning is like I like to have my coffee on my porch and just sit there and just like enjoy. For me that's a big one. Making a beat every single day. Selfish, but it's what makes me happy. Um just simple things I'd say like that. Also even just saying no to like going somewhere when I would rather be by myself or when I feel like I need the time to be by myself. I think that's like a big one for me because I'm super introverted and I need the time to be by myself to be able to go
Mhm.
out and like be with my friends or be with my family.
Yeah. That brings me to a follow-up question because I technically have been classified as an extrovert.
Okay.
So, it was just interesting. What is it like to work with somebody who's really communicative and, like, extroverted all the time?
I love it because it makes it the communication makes it easier. Like if we weren't able to talk about stuff, then it would be so much harder to like if you weren't able to give me constructive feedback. Like um the reason that I didn't would be like scared to send you a beat like for regret or for
Mhm.
selfish was like uh I was like my own internal insecurities. It has nothing to do with you.
Right.
But I would know that you would tell me the truth. And that's why I would send it to you and not just like totally ghost you and never talk to you again. Because, avoidance, I might totally do that.
Yeah, I'm definitely the kind of person where it's like, if something's happening, I wanna say it,
Mm,
so that way it's like, if the cards are on the table, then there's nothing left to hide.
definitely. And that's something that I'm embracing more, which is more like seeing things head on instead of like avoiding it. Because for me, avoiding it is like my safety net. Um,
Yes, it's a self-sabotage. I do it as an extroverted person because I have anxiety. I
mhm.
self-sabotage and I'm like, "Okay, we're just gonna shut this down before what my brain has told me would happen, which
Yeah.
hypothetically probably won't happen, actually happens." So
Yeah, exactly that. One of my best friends from like that's known me since I was like 2 called me out on that a little while, like a month ago, of self-sabotage. And I was like, I kind of forgot that I do that. But then when you explain your situation to somebody else, they're like, yeah, sounds like you're just not letting yourself be happy right now.
why does it seem like my computer's not plugged in? It should be. Unless the cord is getting stupid. I think the cord is getting stupid.
All good. I
Nah,
what's your
it's an
last
old cord that's
question?
been, like, destroyed. Alright, and bonus question?
Yeah, what do you do to be selfish?
Right now, therapy.
Mm.
Um, Therapy and listening to my partner because I've had so much imposter syndrome for the past like 3 months, even while I was, doing the music shoot, doing all of the promos, making all the schedules, everything like that. Even when I felt like I was on top of everything, I had that little voice in the back of my head saying, "You're going to screw up. You're going to mess up. Something bad is going to happen." And
Mhm.
so lately, he's been my selfish, which is if I hear you talk negative about yourself, I'm going to do something you don't like.
Mm. Yeah.
Because then to avoid the thing I don't like, I stop being negative about myself.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Or at
that's
least
good
I
that you
stop
have
being
that,
as
like,
negative.
yeah. No, yeah, I know what you mean. That's good that you have that because that's like um a like a compass kind of like somewhere to go back to,
Right.
right?
Or like I've been practicing stimming more because I'm autistic. But for the longest time in my life, I was looked down on for stimming. And so I had to hide it. And now I'm like doing vocal stems in the house. Like yesterday I was doing this. It was I don't know where it came from. I don't know how I came up with this. It sounds like a vocal exercise and I've never been taught to do this. But I was basically it I was going like all over the house, just walking around making random rhythms and melodies while clicking my tongue and humming.
Whatever works for you.
And it was a vocal stem and I felt embarrassed but also like confused that nobody was saying anything about me doing it. The only
Yeah.
thing my sister asked was, "Hey, what song is that?" And I'm like, "It's not a song. I'm just stimming." Though it probably could have been.
No, that's great. That's great. I love that I asked that because that's awesome. So yeah, that's all the questions that I have for you.
Yeah, and that was all I really had for you was like, because I've never really asked people, like before I had a team, I never really asked people what they thought of a song. I just kind of futzed around with it until I felt like I was happy with the product, and if I was happy with the product, it went out.
Hmm.
I didn't ask for anybody's opinion except for maybe my partner's. That was about it.
Is it different for you getting it like feedback, or do you prefer it like having that?
It's a really different experience for me because music is the one thing I'm like super confident in.
Mhm.
So when you're super confident in something, it's really hard to want feedback
Yeah.
because you feel like your opinion is the only one that matters. And at the end of the day, yes, that's true. But if you're
Mhm.
trying to make it a business, I've learned you have to, there's a little bit of compromising you have to do with it.
Mhm.
And so even though selfish is about breaking rules, setting boundaries, focusing on yourself, I also wanted to focus on the fact that I probably should get some feedback and see what people think about this. So, like, I sent it out
Yeah.
to a small focus group of people that are within the confines of my target audience, and even my spouse says, out of the 3 songs that you've released, this is the one I sing the most.
Sorry, I got super dark there.
But yeah, he's like, out of the 3 songs you've released, this is the one I sing the most.
Yeah. It's the one I sing the most too.
Yeah. He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
cast a spell, gets stuck in my head every so often, especially around Halloween because it's a Halloween based song.
Yeah.
Oil and Fire is kind of hit or miss for him, and I want him to tell me this because I want him to be honest with me.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to hear somebody tell me, I recognize your talent, your dedication and the skill that you put into this, but it's still not my thing.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's fair. Not every song is going to be everyone's favorite, right?
Right.
Um, yeah. Okay. Cool. This has been really fun. So
That
I'm
was a
glad we got to
lot of
do this.
content that I can now chop up over the next 3.5 weeks.
Yeah, no, let's do an outro and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah. So that was really informative. And this is still, I can't say I have a favorite song on the album, but this one is one of the ones that hits the hardest, even when I'm listening to myself in my Google Drive.
Yeah.
So
This is, I will be honest, this is my second favorite song on the project. But it's definitely the one that I thought I agreed should be released first.
actually, I think
And
you're the one who recommended it to be released
I
first.
think so, yeah. I'm pretty vocal when I have an opinion, so
Yes.
um yeah, so I mean this is really exciting for me and I think we should do this again for the next songs that drop too.
Yes, I want to do one for the second pre-release. I'm going to keep entry two under, I'm not going to say it. I want to, but I'm not going to say it. It's entry two. And we should definitely do one again for the EP when it comes out in full.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, sweet.
All right. So I'm Wynn.E, and then this is Anj, the genius badass behind the instrumental. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.